Hello, this is civildigital.com and welcome to the course title STAAD Pro V8i Fundamentals. This is the day 1 and we would be covering some basic concepts like creating a structure geometry, editing it and viewing it in different angles. But first, let's take a look at the graphical user interface of the software. Although you won't be having these recent files in your software if you have installed it recently or haven't tried it much, but the other things would be a little bit same. On the left side we have the project task, in which you can create a new project or open your existing one. You can change your configuration like the base unit or a background color or any other thing which is which depends upon you. You can select according to your need. I would select the metric unit, a metric base unit, because it contains kilonewton and meter, while English contains foot, inches and pounds. Here I would click metric and click accept. Below this is the help topics, which contain help contents and technical support. These can help you while you end up into a tricky place, so you can take a look while you don't have any access to internet to check what the solution can be for your problem. Below these are the RSS feed from STAAD Pro website and the Bentley website. Above it is the license configuration. I would be using Indian design codes for my project. So let's kick off with the new project. First we would write the file name tutorial1 and check. Here we have a meter and kilonewton units. Then the structure type. Structure type can be a good question while you're starting a new project. Although you can change plane structure into space structure by adding a simple beam in the Z direction, but you should select according to your need. I would select a space structure here and click next. Now this is a feature which helps you to decide how to create your model in the start. First of all, the edit job information is of no use right now because you're not doing any job. You're just learning the software, so you should not use this option or the STAAD editor. STAAD editor is basically a text mode where you can add. We would be using an add beam for your support, load, or any other thing, which helps you in creating the command structure from the scratch. You can add the beams accordingly. So you should skip this. You can see the picture in this. Helps in merging and importing the subtitles given in this predefined models box inbuilt in the library. You can see the add beam options. We can add any the structure which you have built in AutoCAD or any other irregular shapes. While in structure wizard we have to software merge a predefined model. Here it is given. Here it is a stadium roof which the user is importing. So we would use an add beam option and click finish. This is the basic layout of the software. You can change some menus, but it's not much of a use. So on the top these are the normal menus: file, edit, view, which contain all the commands. The basic ribbon I would be explaining after I make a little bit of a model, so that I can show you how to view from different angles and rotate it and zoom it. So, and these are the cursor which I would explain after I make the model. The basic workflow while you are working for STAAD Pro is given in these tabs and sub tabs. The tabs here are on the left hand side: setup, geometry, general, analysis and design. In the setup there is a sub topic job, where you can add your job information which is the same option which we were getting while we were starting the project. Next is the geometry. Here we add beams and nodes and everything according to our need. In general, there are 5 submenus where we add the property, like any if we want to add a I section to any beam or give a circular column, so we can add or define any property to the structure. Supports we add here. Load definition and material is also given in the general submenu. Analysis and print helps us after like what we want to see after the analysis, what results what do we want to view. And design helps in looking at the structure components which have failed. We can give the design codes which we want that STAAD should follow, and it will calculate and see which structure components have failed and which haven't. So first I would skip the setup, the job information, and directly come to the geometry menu. Here we have the default grid with us. You can create or edit anything according to your own. I would create and show you the 3 options: linear, radial, and irregular. Linear is a checkbox like structure, like which is given here. Radial you can make while you're creating a cylinder or any dome. Irregular you can select it if you want to make any grid according to your own. I would go to linear and write the name linear 2. I would select XY plane because looking at this view cube here, X, Y and Z, the vertical plane is XY, and therefore I would select this XY here. The spacing here and the construction line, this can be tricky. You should be careful while calculating what do you want. If you want a grid which is 10 by 10 meter here, 10 by 10 meter like here, but you want spacing between the construction line to be 2. So first I would write 2 here. First I have to activate this new grid, so I would click OK and select the checkbox here. For editing it, I would go back to the edit, and like you can see, when I wrote 2 spacing here, 2 meter spacing here, this took the construction line as 10 and the total span became 20 meters because there are 10 construction line at a distance of 2. So obviously I would have to write 5 construction line at the spacing of 2 to get a 10 by 10 grid. This is the basic concept. Right and left here means the direction. This is the origin 0 by 0, and right is the extent of the grid. If I write let's take it 2 here. Here we have a grid up till -4 because there are 2 construction line on the left hand side. I would click OK and go back to the default grid, select linear 2 and hit delete. If you by mistake close any dialog box like I did here right now, you can go back, you can get this dialog box by going to any menu and getting back to the same. You can get this snap node or beam from snap grid node. If you accidentally click close on any dialog box and you're not able to get the same dialog box from any of the commands here, you can go to any other menu and come back, and you would be having the same dialog box sitting for you in the same place. So we have the default grid here. I would like to make a simple tower like structure. I would click on 3 so that we can start and make a beam here, and go on up till the top after every 2 meter spacing. Then horizontally I would take a beam. Then horizontally I would take it up to 3 meters and come back downwards and get back to grid point number 3. I still have the beam let's first save it. I still have this beam making cursor with me, so I would hit escape to get rid of that. I don't want this base beam in my structure, the beam number 12, so I would click and delete. But before doing so, I would show you one thing. If you hover any beam, your mouse over any beam like number 2 or number 3, you would see 3 different colors over the beam. Green denotes the start, red is the middle, and blue is the end point, end part and section of your beam. So if you want to add any node or any geometry, all the distance would be calculated from the start of the beam, here the grid point number 6. So you should be careful while you are entering any distance if you want to insert any node, which we would be doing later on in this tutorial only. So you should be careful. Right now I would click on the beam and hit delete on my keyboard, click OK. Now I would like to add the beam between these nodes, but it would be difficult if I just click from node to node, and you won't be able to see which node I am talking about. So I would like to add some beam node numbers to the given nodes. I would right click on the screen and go to labels menu. In the labels menu I would select node numbers here. Remember, node numbers have n in the bracket. You would see the use of this letter later on. I would select the node number and click OK. Now we have node number which are in regular alphabets, while the beam numbers are in bold characters. I would turn off the grid to make it clearer by just unchecking the box. If you are not having the beam number in your software, you can go into labels menu again and select beam numbers from here. And for beam numbers we have B in the options, in the bracket, sorry. What the letter in the bracket does is, if you select if you hold shift button and tap the letter in the bracket, the command would be activated. If I click shift, if I hold shift and click B, the beam number are deleted. The same goes with the node number. I would only use the node number here and use the shift N to activate them. Now I would like to add beams across 5 to 8, 4 to 9, 3 to 10 and 2 to 11. I would go into the geometry menu, add beam from point to point, and click on node number 5, then 8, 4 and 9, 3 and 10, 2 and 11, and hit escape to go back to the default cursor. Here we have only a plain structure right now. A building or anything cannot be like this, so we have to copy it in Z direction. So I would hit Ctrl A to select all the beams and go into the geometry menu and select translational repeat. What translation repeat does is that you can copy the structure in any direction in any number of times. Here we want to copy it in Z direction, I would select Z. Number of steps would be 1 because we only want one similar copy of all these beams. I would write 6 in the default spacing and click link steps. What link step does is, after you copy the given beams, all the adjacent nodes would be linked. A new beam would be formed between them. Let's take a look. I would select link steps and click OK, and turn on the beam numbers and turn off the node numbers. Right now I'm not able to tell you which beam I am talking about, so let's take a look at these rotation menus. Rotate up, rotate down. I would like to rotate it left. You can also do this with your keyboard. Left makes it anti-clockwise, left arrow, and right arrow makes it clockwise. This view is, I guess, correct, would be fine. Now after the link steps, these beams 22, 21, 20, 24, these horizontal beams in Z directions are made, but we didn't want the base beams here, 16 and I guess it is 27. So I would hit Ctrl Z and do undo. Go back to the isometric view here, the default view, hit Ctrl A again and go to translational repeat. Z direction, 6 meter, link steps. Now I would choose open base. What open base would do is the reverse of link step in for only the base of the model, the bottommost nodes. We won't be having the beam number which were, I guess, 17 and 24 this time. So I would click OK, and we don't have those beams this time. So now we have made a little bit of 3D model. So let's take a look at all these options. View from Z. View from Z would simply simply would take would give the side view. As now we have made the 3D model, so let's take a look at all the views and rotation menus and all the zoom options. View from +Z and -Z would give the side view, which right now is similar because of the symmetry. +X and -X would give the front and the back. +Y and -Y would give the top and the bottom face of the structure. Isometric view would give us the default. Rotation can be done with these commands, these buttons, but also from the keyboard arrows. The left button, which I am clicking right now, makes the model go anti-clockwise. The right makes it clockwise. The zoom buttons can be helpful while you're working in a very complicated model. This is the dynamic zoom button. Dynamic zoom button is similar to a magnifying glass, but with a better resolution. So I have selected the window here by simply clicking and dragging. And here we have the zoom structure. Inferior kind of dynamic zoom is the magnifying glass, which only magnifies the structure into a pixelate low resolution photo. All the other zoom in and zoom out are normal day-to-day, which are used in day-to-day softwares. These are the cursor, node cursor, beam cursor. Node cursor helps in selecting only the nodes. Like if I want to select, let's turn on the node number. If I want to select only node number 6 and 7, so I would make a window here. We don't have those. Like if I want to select node number 7 and 6, I would simply make a window here and the beam number 6 won't be selected. On the contrary, if I want to select the beam number 6 and not the nodes, I would simply use the beam cursor from here and click the beam number 6 or 21 and the nodes won't be selected. For using the plate cursor, we have to make some plates which are the similar slabs or surfaces which are used in the daily life. So we would be creating it right now and use the cursor. So these are the basic these are the other cursors, load, edit and support, which are a little bit advanced and would be covered later on. So like I had told you, if we hover over any beam, we have 3 colors and the distance is calculated from the green part or the green end of the beam. I want to add I want to add some midpoints in this beams which are parallel to z-axis, like 21, 20, 19, so that we have a square structure, square slabs on the roofs and floors. So if I just simply click each beam and start inserting nodes in the center, it would be a long and tedious job. So we can view it differently. There are many options to view it differently. I can go into view from x-axis and select all these beams, or I can go into any other options, like, but the best option would be going into the select menu, beams parallel to z-axis, so that we won't miss any of the beams which we want to divide into 2 parts. So I would repeat, select beams parallel to z-axis. Now what? Do you want to add a node in the center of the beam? But to make it a little bit less congested, we would go into a new view. We would select view selected objects only, and now we have only the beams which were selected, which were parallel to the z-axis. To go back to the same view, we would go to view and uncheck view selected objects only. To make it clearer, I would select beam number 16, 27, 40, 26 and let's take 20 also, and go to view selected objects only. So all the things that we had selected are in a new view and a little bit less congested, so we can work on these separately. But we want the z-axis beams only. I would again go to select beams parallel to z and go back to view selected objects only. Now we have all the horizontal beams. I would hit Ctrl A, right click, insert node. I want the node at the midpoint of the beams right here, so I would select add midpoints. These distances and proportions are calculated from the green end, as I had already told you. Add endpoints would if you want to add 3 points in the beams at equal distance, you can simply write n equals to 3 and click OK. Right now I would click add midpoint and hit OK. To check, you can use node cursor and see there are nodes in the middle of these beams. You can select the beam cursor and check Now we have two different beams which were once one. We would go back to the normal structure, and now I want to add the horizontal beams from 29 to 30. So let's now add them, add the beams across these horizontals. So I would again go back to add beam, or you can use this button here, add beams. Click here. Now I want to add 29 to 30, 28 to 31, 27 to 32, 26 to 33, and 23 to 34, and go back to the normal view. I guess we have correct structure here. I would see if we have all the beams. There should be 5, and yes, we have 5 horizontal beams crossing the longer span of the structure. So let's now add some roof and floor to this building. Go into the geometry, add plates. Here we have two options: quad, which means rectangle or any square, and triangle. We have some square structures, so I would use quad and click the 4 nodes here. I would click 6, 29, 30, and 7, 29, 18, 19, 30, and hit escape. Now we can use the plate cursor. Select the plate cursor and click here, and we can check there are only 2 plates in our whole structure. You can add plates one by one to all the floors and the roofs, but here we can use another trick. Again, the transitional repeat. Use the plate cursor and select both the plates and go to geometry, translational repeat. But I don't know the distance between the floors, so I would click on the snap node beam and choose the default grid. The distance is from the grid is, I guess, 2 meters, so I would write -2 as we are going in the negative direction. Y is the direction. Steps would be 4, as we need 4 copies. We don't need any linking steps or open based geometry, so I just click OK. Turn off the grid, and using the plate cursor again, I would check if all the plates are okay. We have 5 plates. Yes. You can also check if any plate is missing or copied one over the another, because sometimes it happens due to wrong calculation or anything in big complex structure. Sometimes we have overlapping beams or overlapping plates, so you can go into this submenu plate and see if all the beams are correct. I guess so, it is. You can also check the beams if they are also copied with the plates while we were doing the translational repeat. So you can go to the last beam and see beam number 55, 54, and if your memory is correct, 55 was the last beam that we added while we were in the different view. So up till now we have created the geometry, edited it, viewed the model in different angles and in different views. In the next tutorial we would be using the models from Structure Wizard and assigning some properties and specification supports to the structure. So see you next time, and keep visiting civildigital.com. Thank you. Goodbye.